Welcome to In Pursuit. Everyone should be in pursuit of something. Join us in our discussions today with inspiring people who influence our lives and energize our understanding of what's possible. Stay in pursuit while we welcome our host, Robert Pascuzzi.
Welcome, listeners, to this edition of In Pursuit. And today we're in pursuit in a big way with a very, very exciting guest. Matt, tell them who we have on today.
All right, folks, and today we have Cynthia Kersey. And Cynthia is the founder and CEO of the Unstoppable Foundation, whose focus is to ensure that every child on the planet has access to the lifelong gift of education. She's a respected leader in the transformational industry, a best-selling author of 2 books, Unstoppable and Unstoppable Women, and an international speaker. Cynthia knows firsthand that giving is not only good for business, it's good for the soul. She inspires people to give and provides business professionals with a practical action plan on how they can expand their business, create customer evangelists, and become completely invigorated about their life and business by integrating generosity as a fundamental part of their business model. Cynthia embodies her message and has integrated giving and contribution into her life and business for well over 2 decades. The Unstoppable Foundation has provided a daily education to over 40,000 children and provides access to life-saving services such as clean water, healthcare, and nutritious food through organic gardens to over 78,000 men, women, and children in Kenya alone.
All right, listeners, today we're with the one and only Cynthia Kersey. And Cynthia, welcome. It's so amazing to have you with us today.
Thank you, Bob. Thrilled to be in pursuit with you.
Amen. It's fun, isn't it? Well, in that light,
Definitely.
we're all in pursuit, hopefully, of something that's really inspiring and really gets us excited every day. And there's so much we can talk about and so much that you've done and so much to share with listeners. But I want to get to the main points soon, but I do want you just to start with the listeners and maybe share with them right now a lot going on out there, obviously. But in your own personal experience, what are you moving towards right now? What are you most in pursuit of, Cynthia?
Wow, that's a very good question. Well, first off, first quarter, and you're familiar with our work. So I've been running a foundation, Unstoppable Foundation, for over a decade, and we're educating over 40,000 children and impacting over 80,000 community members in the Masai Mara. And we now have kids that are graduating from college, and it's like our best first quarter ever. And then the coronavirus, hits not only us globally, but it's now coming to the Mara. So
Right.
The thing I'm most focused on right this second is ensuring that vulnerable communities are able to make it through this. You know what I'm saying? It's like when we're social isolating here, and I know you can't go to the gym, and now you had to create your own gym in the garage, which is like a major hardship.
Yes.
But, around the world, it's like, there's no bailout. There's no
Right.
assistance. So, and when you can't get food and you can't sell your products, you're not making an income. It's a challenge. So right this second, what I'm most, focused on is ensuring our communities make it through this and they can move back into schools and thrive and really be all that God intended them to be. That's what we're committed to.
Right. And so, Cynthia, can you share with the listeners your story? It's so inspiring, and I've heard it many times, but you can't hear it enough. Just to give them the context of what you're talking about, can you kind of take us back to that first journey you took over to Kenya and how this all started?
Sure. Thank you. Well, I've always integrated philanthropy in my business, in my books, in my speaking, in my coaching. So my second book came out in 2005, Unstoppable Women, and I was looking for what would be that next project. And I was invited out of the blue to go to this conference in rural Kenya with women from East Africa. And the only thing that I knew about this conference was that women were going to come and share their stories. And I felt like I should say yes. So I booked my flight, like literally within a couple of weeks, booked the flight, was over in Kenya, sat for 5 days listening to nearly 400 women sharing their stories.
Right.
And their stories were much different than what our lives look like. And, they were talking about their girls are, fetching water and they're not in school and their kids are dying from malaria and all of these things. And, the first couple of days, I'm heartbroken. And then I just started to get pissed off because I'm thinking, like, how is this okay? That, this is the conversation they're having, and it certainly wasn't the conversation that my friends were having. So as I was leaving, we were hugging, and they were saying something. It was like they were chanting, and I asked the interpreter, what are they saying? And he said, they're saying, please don't forget us.
Wow.
And so I thought, wow, I mean, who am I? What am I going to do
Right.
to support, really, like, what could I possibly do? But I felt like, what am I going to say? I have to do something. So the first thing I did was I turned my birthday, I was turning 50, and I turned my birthday into a fundraiser. And of course, your friend of mine, Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey, and all sorts of great people that we love, came. And I raised $80,000, and we helped fund 2 schools. But what was interesting about it, Bob, is that people were thanking me for the opportunity.
Right. I love that. That's so amazing.
Yeah. And so I thought, wow, if I could do that in one night, what could I do if I actually put some attention to this? And that's what I did. I started doing some research, and I got, there's lots of great organizations building schools in developing countries, and in 5 years, they're sitting there empty. And as I looked into it, it's like, you can build a school, but if you're not providing clean water, kids are sick, girls are fetching the water. If you don't provide access to health care when they're ill, they're not in school, nutritious food, training for the parents. If they can't generate an income, it can't be sustainable. So
Right.
I thought, oh, great. Okay, not only do we need to build a school, but we need to do all 5 things to make it successful.
And that was the 5 pillars.
Yeah, go ahead. That's right. That's exactly right. So I partnered with an organization in Kenya in the Masai Mara, and we started implementing this sponsor a village model. And, so over the years that has grown. And like I said, we're in 17 communities, and, also built 2 high schools so girls could continue. And we just launched a college with We Charity. We're now for the first time, people can become doctors and nurses and agronomists. And, so I mean, it's just this thing that's grown. And you and Kelly, of course, have been huge supporters, and you've been over there and you've seen them. And it's one of the highest blessings of my life to be able to do this work with people that I love. And it's interesting when I'm talking about this, because it's that same commitment that I made, when they said, please don't forget us.
Right.
And I feel the same thing now. It's like, it's not all that popular to be out there raising money. You know what I mean? In the middle of a freaking global pandemic.
No, I get it.
And then I think about, and then I think, what they're saying is, please don't forget us. I never correlated that, until with what I'm doing right now. And so that's my focus. And, we're excited, like everybody is in the U.S. to get back. And we want to get back to our programs too. And we can't jump the gun on this. Unfortunately, they anticipate it's going to be at its peak in Kenya in end of May, June, and July. So we are being preventative, and I feel good about what we're doing. But, please don't forget it.
A new challenge for sure. Yeah, and
a new challenge.
What's so inspiring is what you said is you thought initially, what could one person do? What could I do? And I think that's what holds so many people back. It's the start that stops.
Yeah.
What advice would you give the listeners who might have a big idea that, like you, could eventually impact, many, many people, but they feel limited or they feel inferior in making that first step? What would you tell a listener in that regard?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, and I've made several of those decisions, that have been kind of big decisions, and, and no turning back. And I think the key thing for me is I was doing something that I felt inspired to do. Inspiration is of spirit, in spirit. So when you're really inspired by something, and it's funny as I'm talking about this, I think about my first book, Unstoppable. It's like you have to have a purpose. Like, why are you doing it? And then you have to be passionate about it. Like, is this in alignment with the things you love to do? Like when I wrote my book, I loved interviewing people. I loved learning. I was curious. I was really into personal development.
Right.
So it made sense that, I'd want to write my book, the first book. You have to believe it's possible. And trust me, in the beginning, when I wrote my first book and when I started this foundation, my level of confidence in myself wasn't that high. But I took on other people's beliefs about myself. Millard Fuller, the founder of Habitat for Humanity, was a big believer and mentor to me. Bob Proctor, big believer in me. He believed in me for years before I really believed in myself.
That's so cool.
And that's the truth. So it's like finding something that really keeps you up at night, something that really inspires you, and then being willing to be a student, to find mentors, to give in the way that you can give. I always wanted to contribute. And in the beginning, when I first wrote my book, I didn't have a lot of money. So, I talked to Miller and he's like, well, go out. What can you do? I gave my book away. I volunteered at a women's shelter. Like workshops for free for women who could benefit from this, and men.
You found a way.
You could always do something. Yes. And as you give, your confidence grows.
Yes, it's through experience. And I love what you said, is that you borrowed the belief of someone else as you were building your own. You might not have believed it, but they believed it, right? And it gave you that energy and confidence to move forward. You interviewed 45 people in your book, Unstoppable. And I know the likes of Joan Rivers and so forth. Can you tell the listeners, was there one person that you really, really, found so interesting or really impacted you that you have in your book? Is there somebody that really stuck out to you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many. I mean, one of them was Anita Roddick, when she started the Body Shop.
Right.
Her purpose was to put food on the table for her 2 kids, so it wasn't like this grandiose dream.
Right.
And so she decided, yes, she's going to open up this store, and she couldn't find anyone willing to lend her investors to invest in her. So she found a friend of a friend that gave her $6,400 in exchange for 50% of the Body Shop.
Wow.
50%. And so here she's starting. I know, seriously. And she, didn't have the money for this really expensive packaging. So she and a friend sat at their kitchen table and hand wrote every label. And people thought that she was trying to act real, like, natural and earthy. Mm-hmm. And it was, because she didn't have the money. And she literally went, Bob, and she went to get those little plastic urine containers from a hospital supply store. And that's what she used to put her products in.
Wow.
And it was out of purpose. And she was committed. And of course, the Body Shop became a huge success. Mm-hmm. So to me, and it was interesting as I've been thinking about this, like, these unstoppable stories are so applicable to today, because these are individuals who experienced sometimes more challenge than any of us did, but they stayed focused on their goal. They stayed in action, and ultimately they prevailed. And I think having models, having your show, where you're bringing people who can also, show the way, and certainly your life is a representative of an unstoppable person, and it gives people hope that they can do it too.
Well, thank you. And, Cynthia, that's so lovely. And that is the big intent of In Pursuit. Our show is to inspire people through the lives of people that are making it happen, like you, and show people that even during a time when the whole world has been disrupted, that there's still hope and there is still light at the end of the tunnel. And, there is a way, there's always a way. And I like the phrase that if you find enough reasons why, you can do anything. And I think does that resonate with you? I think you found some really empowering reasons why you wanted to go back to Kenya and help these people. And you found enough reasons to keep you moving forward. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would 100%. I've heard the saying, and when you have a big enough why, you can bear any how. And absolutely. I mean, I think throughout my career, multiple careers, really over how many years, it's always been, what gives you the courage to say yes when you don't think that you're qualified, or I'd never written anything more than a college term paper in my entire life when I wrote my first book.
Yes. And here I'm looking at it, and you've got Mark Victor Hansen endorsed this, and Tony Robbins and Quincy Jones, and I mean, on and on. Yeah. It's an amazing book. If you don't have a copy of Cynthia's original Unstoppable, you need to pick that up immediately. Awesome book, very inspiring. Yeah.
And I remember, even just, the courage it takes to ask all of these people, for endorsements, and you've got to follow up, and they don't know who you are, and it's just this process. But again, I was inspired by these unstoppable people. They inspired me. And so my purpose at that point was to inspire people to live unstoppable lives, to believe in themselves more deeply and give them the tools to take action. So I had read these stories my whole life. I was inspired by them, and I decided, to, like I said, quit my job, cash in my entire life savings. I downsized my life to be able to write that first book. Amazing,
but you went all in, and I think that's the key to everything. If you look at great accomplishments, Cynthia, and you know this because this is what you did. I mean, you dug your ditches and you burned the boats in the bay, so to speak, and took the beach, right? There was only one way you were going. It was forward. And that's what it takes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's what it takes. I mean, of all the amazing things that you've done and all the great accomplishments that you have, let's talk about what you've done over in Kenya. What would you say you're most proud of?
Well, it's interesting. I think for me, it's interesting. Okay, so there's two things. Number one, when I got a divorce, I was very proud of myself of how I handled the divorce, and I wasn't negative. I really took the high road, and I used that experience to find a purpose that was bigger than my pain. Mm-hmm. And so, and that was, I ended up doing this big project with Habitat for Humanity and raised the money to build 100 houses and turned it into something really positive. So I was very proud of myself because that opened everything for me. If so many people go through a divorce or something happens in their life and they get bitter and they get stuck, and it's like their life, they stop growing. And that was an impetus because I chose love, I chose forgiveness, and I chose service to do something. Look at what that has created, not only for me, but for so many people. So that on a personal level, I'm so grateful, and I encourage anyone, who's going through a challenging time, to look at, how is this serving me? Where, it's like Bob always says, it is what it is, harvest the good, and forgive all the rest. So to be able to move forward as soon as possible, I think is really critical to creating a life that you love. And then as far as just being proud, for me to be able to go, we've been working there now for 11 years. So I've been working, with these students going to primary school and then going to high school and then able to go to college.
Right. You've seen them all the way through.
Well, all the way through. And we were at the graduation, and there were 20 girls. They were standing out there. It was pouring down rain. And we're all under a little tarp, and, God forbid we get wet. Right. And they are singing their hearts out.
Oh, they're just...
It's like, wow.
They're euphoric. Right.
Yeah. So I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them. I'm honored to have been able to play a role in them having an opportunity they never had the opportunity to do. So I think, that to me is what I'm most proud of.
Well, I'm proud of you because it took great courage to move forward and do what most people said was probably impossible, right? I mean, how are you going to, how are you really going to make an impact on a need that's so great? But you took that first step. And what I hear you saying is that with each step you took, your concept of yourself, your confidence, your image, your self-image grew, and it grew exponentially over time, right? And for you listeners, it's so important because you really need to look at who you think you are, because it's very interesting how most people will describe themselves in a limiting fashion, when in fact, as we know, Cynthia, we're God's highest form of creation, and we can do, be, or have anything we want if we make that decision and we have the faith and we step out like you did, and you took that first step. So inspiring, so inspiring. Now, I want to talk about, again, giving and receiving, because as you say, if I have this right, and correct me if I don't, okay? But I think I've heard you say many times that they're the same thing. Giving and receiving are the same thing. Could you further explain this principle based on your personal experience for the listeners?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, like, for example, have you ever given Kelly or, maybe your kids, you had a gift for them and you were so excited, like you couldn't wait to give that to them. It was like, even better than you receiving a gift. I'm sure you received that. You've experienced it so many times, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. Every day. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you're so excited, and it's like when you give, it's what Larry King was talking. He asked Dana Reeves and Chris Reeves, what do you do when you're feeling down? I mean, he was in a wheelchair, and he said, what do you do? And Dana and Christopher both said, we give. We look for how can we give, because when we give, it is a surefire way to help ourselves.
Right.
So when we give, it's the most self-supportive thing we can do for ourselves. It uplifts our mood. We feel like we have purpose again. Just talking about it inspires me. So anybody who's listening to this, if you're feeling down or if you want to feel great, look for how you can give, and it doesn't have to be big. It can be. Can I tell a really quick story about this?
Yeah, love you to.
So Cammie Walker was at the height of her career. She just got married to the love of her life, and literally just got back from her honeymoon. And she woke up one day and her left arm wouldn't work.
Wow.
She goes to the hospital. Within 30 days, she was diagnosed as having multiple sclerosis, and her life progressively went downhill. She's in the hospital. She's depressed. She feels terrible, and she lost hope of a better life. And so a woman came in who was a dear friend of hers. She was also a spiritual teacher, and she said, Cammie, she said, I love you. I know this is hard for you, but you got to stop thinking about yourself and your problem all the time. And Cammie's laying there in a hospital bed, and she says, do you not see where I am? Are you not tracking with what's happening in my life?
Right, look at me.
Yeah, exactly. And her name is Mabali, and she said, yes. She said, and that's part of the problem. When you think about your problem all the time, it magnifies. So I want to give you a prescription. I want you to give away 29 gifts in 29 days.
Oh,
one
so cool.
Every day. And it doesn't have to be something big.
Right.
Because Cammie's thinking, what do I have to give? Are you serious? Like, I'm in a hospital room. She said, it doesn't have to be big. It could be a kind word. It could be an encouragement. It could be a blessing. It could be a prayer. But you have to do it from a place of all is well. Like,
gratitude.
All of my needs are met.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So she thought, okay, all right. I don't think it's going to hurt me. she certainly didn't think it was going to help her. So day one, her friend, who also has multiple sclerosis, her friend's husband was on a business trip. So Tammy thought, I'll just call her and, just encourage her. And Tammy noticed that she felt better. Every day she did one little thing. And by day 13 or 14, she's walking without her cane.
Wow.
She didn't even, literally.
Amazing.
By the end of the 29 days, she and her husband, they went on a 1 mile walk, which would have been impossible for her, she thought, before then. And she said, do I still have MS? Yes, I do. But I have hope. I know that I can contribute. I know that there's something for me to do in this world.
Right.
And so if Cammie Walker, you know what I'm saying, if she can feel better, just on how can I reach out and help somebody every day? It could be, letting somebody pull out in front of you when you're, getting out of the grocery store or something little, but you feel better when you do it.
Right. Because when we lose meaning, we lose hope. So we all have to have a meaning.
Right.
Something that's getting us out of bed in the morning, right? And that we're moving towards. And Cynthia, obviously you personify, I know you know the importance and you live it out every day in your life of taking care of others. But I want you to share with the listeners how you show yourself, care to yourself, self-care to you. What do you do for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question too. So many great questions. Anyway, yeah, there you go. So, I'm definitely in a routine. So I get up in the morning and first thing I do is I have coffee and read read something that inspires me. Then I go in we have a little gym in the house and just kind of work out and, move my body. And, and then I spend that time really, and then I come back and just spend, few minutes really looking at what do I want to create and really moving it, gratitude for, what am I grateful for? I mean, that's really one of the key things that I do every morning. And then, then I'm just in action. And one thing that I think people feel overwhelmed about starting a project, like writing a book or, writing a movie, as you well know, that whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's like, what's one thing I could do today?
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing that's going to move me forward?
Mm.
One step, that's it. And as you take that step, people think, to be on.
Right. Because look at how long it took you. I mean, you over 10 years. And so I think, that's a message for the listeners is things don't happen overnight. There's no magic wand. And especially when you're chasing big dreams, you got to give it time because God's delays are not God's denials, as they say. It's in the right time. And that's one of the things I've had to learn because me, Cynthia, and I think I'm just going to make it happen tomorrow or yesterday, even better.
Right.
But I've had to learn to be patient, and my wife Kelly's helped me so much with that too. But it's in the right time, and I know that because things happen when they're supposed to happen. We have to do our part, right? And you do that. That's what you're saying. You're doing it every day. You're doing your part, and then you have to let the rest just take care of itself.
Right, because we don't really know. Like, when I was, after my divorce, I was single for, 11 or 12 years. Mm-hmm. And, I had a great life. I'd written, 2 books and, just was happy, but I really wanted a partner.
Right.
But it didn't happen until it happened, and I think I wouldn't have attracted my husband and he wouldn't have attracted me if we didn't have that time to grow. Right. And to expand so that we were ready for each other.
Amazing Blaine. Yes.
Exactly.
And it's been amazing, right?
So I like what you said. It's like God's delays are not God's denials. And it's just not right this second. And, whether it's a partner or whether it's a business or whether it's a bestseller or whatever it is, you just stay focused on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what is the service that this is going to make possible.
Right, because it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Maybe it's not happening in your timeline, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And that's one of the things, as you know, that we had to learn, Kelly and I, with the Ravine. It's a 10-year project, I think, of you. You're over 10 years in your journey, and our journey just hit. We just got over 10 years. But looking back now, you see how everything happened at the right time. And that everything that you need, and this is an important message, I think, for the listeners, is that everything that you need will come to you at the right time if you hold on to that belief and you keep moving forward. And that's so important.
Exactly.
So, Cynthia, I've got my sidekick here, Matt Jensen. He's been chomping at the bit. He wants to ask you the last question, if that's okay with you. So, Matt, take it away.
All right. Thank
Cynthia,
you.
Your story has just been absolutely inspiring. As someone, Robert just recently had introduced me to you, and looking everything up, it's just incredible to see how far you've come and all the people you've inspired. And, me and Robert have been talking a ton about doubling down right now and how we're utilizing this time to, go the extra distance. And I was kind of curious, like, what's your take for maybe some of our listeners that are curious about what they could maybe be doing to double down just in their work ethic? What are you doing to double down during this time, if you are doing that? Because we're curious. You've got a lot of stuff going. You seem like someone that's nonstop.
Right. Well, what I would recommend, and this is something I'm even looking for myself. So it's like, obviously my days are very full with what I'm doing with the foundation. And I'm also curious in what is that next creative project for me? So it's like, how can I use this time, which is really a gift, to be able to create something new? What is it? A new book? Is it, what is it? So I'm actually in that inquiry myself of, holding that intention, noticing where the inspiration kind of nudges me. I'm still in the inquiry, so I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think it's a great time, just to listen, to kind of take a moment. I mean, we're always so busy. So also it's a great opportunity just to listen to spirit and what is calling. It's a major reset that we're all experiencing on this planet.
Oh, for sure.
So, maybe for some people, it's an opportunity to stop and to go, is this working for me? Am I happy with my life? Am I happy with my choice? And if not, what is that next move? What is, where are we being called to serve in a greater way?
Thank you for sharing that, Cynthia. And that was a good question, man. Because I think it is so important, as you said, to be asking the right questions always. And if we were aware sometimes of the questions we ask, they're not the right questions. They're self-limiting questions, but you're asking the right questions. And more than ever right now, as you said, it's a time to maybe look inward and go to study, right? And Cynthia, you and I are big, proponents and benefactors of Bob Proctor's work and friends with Bob. And that's how we met. And so a little Bob Proctor commercial here, if I may, but Bob's not the only person out there, but Bob is amazing. And Bob has put things in perspective for Kelly and I over the last few years and really helped us go to the next level and achieve some amazing dreams that I look back on. And maybe even a couple of years ago, I would have thought were not possible. But it's all possible through self-awareness, as you know, Cynthia, and growing your self-awareness and growing your self-image and believing that anything is possible, because anybody can do anything. And you're such an awesome example of that. So I think we're going to wrap it up and not take any more of your time. But Cynthia, I love you to death, and you're an amazing friend and an amazing inspiration to so many out there. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and Matt and I, for being on the show today and joining us on In Pursuit.
Well, thank you. I love you, and I love your beautiful wife, and you inspire me, Robert Cuscuzi. So thank you for letting me be a part of your show and your work and your inspiration.
All right. Thanks so much, Cynthia, for being with us. And for all you listeners, we look forward to having you on the next episode of In Pursuit.
This has been another special edition of In Pursuit with your host, Robert Pascuzzi. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our program. And remember, everybody should be in pursuit of something.